The Minister of Higher Education and Training, Naledi, Pandor, and the Administrator at the National Student Financial Aid Scheme, Dr. Randall, Carolissen, joined me from our parliamentary studio. Thanks both so much for your time. Minister, in 2019, students shouldn't be dying over issues of higher education and protests around that.
I think no person should die in a protest, and we should ask all security forces, they should be instructed, whether private or public, to exercise maximum discretion to ensure that demonstrations or protests can go ahead without violent incident. All parties involved in any protest must ensure protection of lives. I'm horrified at the loss of life and the tragic loss of a young person. I express my deepest condolences to the family at this tragedy. This should never have happened, and I hope it won't happen in any incident or protest in our institutions.
What kind of interactions have you had with that institution with regards to this incident, and are you going to intervene in any way?
Well, in terms of intervention, this is what the university should really pay attention to, and I know already the university is looking closely at the incident and what action they need to take in ensuring that any persons who are assigned to protect the institution do so with due respect for the law. We have been in contact with the Vice-Chancellor. We've received an initial report. We've also, of course, noted his media statement. But as he said in his statement, I think it's important that we allow a proper investigation. And once we have a full report, we then would interface with the institution to look at what should be done along with them. It is the university's responsibility, and I think it's important that they ensure protection of all staff, all students, and anyone who is on our campuses or close to them.
Dr. Carolissen, we're hearing that NSFAS has not paid out money to needy students. Why is this?
Well, that's not entirely correct. As we speak today, 160,000, more than 160,000 students at different institutions have actually received their disbursements into their accounts. And that number is growing every day. I might want to remind you that we have made available upfront payments to all institutions, and it's just simply a question of them now processing it upon their registration, receiving the registration data, and get the money through to the bank accounts of students. Now, of course, there are some students that are still in the process of opening up their bank accounts, but the progress has been tremendous so far, and we are very pleased that we were able to disburse as early as we do this year.
There are some students who are still complaining, though, either they haven't received money or that they haven't even heard back from NSFAS with regards to an appeal where their funding got rejected.
Well, we have received 10,500 appeals, of which about 6,400 were unique, meaning the rest of them were duplicates. We have approved 1,600 appeals. The major problem with the remainder is that students did not provide us with the additional documentation to substantiate their appeals. In other cases, they have not provided us with consent forms for us to verify the credit status, and we have begun an outbound campaign to address that, to encourage people to put forward their appeals. Some of the appeals were very quickly be able to dealt with as people declare the changing household circumstances, and when we verified that the appeal was then processed and the student's status updated on the portal. We also notify them about the updated status or the approved status.
Minister Pandor, it seems that there's a systemic problem when it comes to higher education institutions, and it seems to be getting worse each year. We're seeing protests around accommodation, around fees, and around access. What is the department doing about this?
Well, as I've reported earlier today, the government has provided funding through an infrastructure efficiency grant to universities as well as FET colleges. We're aware that we don't have enough accommodation for all students who may require it. But you'll be aware as well that in addition to accommodation on campuses, that is university or college residences, we also make allowance for accommodation off campus. that is private accommodation that students might lease with the support, of course, and checking by the institution. I believe that our government has done a great deal to provide support to young people who need assistance in the form of accommodation. Not entirely satisfactory as yet, but when you provide over 4.6 billion over the next 3 years, this shows a commitment to address the needs that are out there.
Well, when we're speaking about figures, Parliament's Standing Committee on Public Accounts has said that the issue with NSFAS is not that they don't have money, is that the money from NSFAS is not managed properly.
Well, I think they're talking about a NSFAS before I appointed an administrator. Since the appointment of the administrator in August, there's been a radical change within the National Student Financial Aid Scheme. This has been acknowledged by commentators, by the Portfolio Committee in Parliament. Dr. Carolissen will be appearing before the Public Accounts Committee, along with the DG, who is right here beside me. So we have done a great deal to improve the functioning and efficiency and systems of the National Student Financial Aid Scheme. And I think if you talk to the students generally and interview them, you will find that of a large number who have applied, they've actually received responses. I have gone out to campuses and I have met students who've actually got their confirmation that they're eligible, and I've also met a number who have begun to receive their funds. So I think if we look just at one side of a story and don't look at the full aspect of what is being done by the National Financial Aid Scheme, we will have the belief that there is no change. But indeed, a great deal of change has occurred, and I'm very pleased with the work the administrator and the team at NSFAS have done thus far.
Let's speak more about that perhaps with the administrator. The Auditor General has also raised an issue about internal controls at NSFAS. How has that been dealt with? Because that was also an issue that was flagged when it came to the finances and how they were dispersed.
These were exactly the issues for which I had to appoint an administrator. We've addressed the matter of internal controls. The risk environment has been addressed and has improved vastly. We are working very closely through the NSFAS team with the Auditor General's team that audits the National Student Financial Aid Scheme. They've been given the up-to-date accounting information that is required for the audit. We've addressed the risks, the inadequacies with respect to persons who have access, persons who are given codes, the limits that they can approve disbursement of. So, you know, we're addressing these issues. We're not perfect. I'm not claiming we've arrived at the position I want us to be, but I think we've taken many steps toward the kind of organization I believe the National Financial Aid Scheme should be.
Dr. Carolissen, there's a sense of confusion when we're speaking about funding because some people assumed incorrectly that when government announced that there's going to be fee-free higher education, the kind of issues that we are seeing now are not going to come up. So can you clarify that for us? Who gets funding from NSFAS? Talk to us about that missing middle and how you also work to try and make sure that as many people as possible do get into the higher education system.
So the cutoff for financial eligibility is a household income of 350,000 since 2018. The limit prior to that for senior students is 122,000. And then, of course, if you are in a social beneficiary, grant beneficiary, you also do qualify almost automatically once we've done the initial checks. So we do indeed address the poor and the people desperately in need to become part of an inclusive society. And we can see the results. Our initial research has indicated that these students, that once they are sure of their funding and they know where the next meal comes from, that they actually become a little bit more successful than other students. So we're starting to see very encouraging signs that we are beginning to address the exclusionary nature of our society. So yes, it's not perfect, but we are making a big contribution to the country's upliftment.
Dr. Carolissen, how much would you say the issues around NSFAS at the different institutions of higher learning at the country need to be looked at? And I'm asking in terms of the intervention that took place last time there was a backlog. I think 50 people were deployed across the country just to make sure that that process flowed smoothly. Is there a need for that kind of intervention now? Because it seems from those protests and from students, some student concerns that we're seeing even online, that there are quite deep issues with NSFAS this year.
So what we have at the institutions, we have audited all institutions, and we were those institutions that we are satisfied were that could disperse. We gave them the upfront money, and they are indeed dispersing that to students. In the case where there were institutions that were lacking capacity or they indicated they could not meet our system's demands, we have developed a channel directly from NSFAS to disperse to those students. It seems to be working because the NSFAS channel was the one that we got most of the disbursements through. Well, not most, a large amount of the disbursements through. So we are in constant contact with the vice chancellors, with the principals, and we assist and intervene so that the systems are aligned with our expectations. We have a much better interface with institutions. They can see our data live. They can see live who has been approved, who has not been approved, who has documents outstanding. And it's working much better than before. In fact, we are quite proud that we were able to manage the Tvet walk-ins, the large number of Tvet walk-ins this year of 130,000. We were able to manage that on a real-time basis. So as the students register, we could capture them almost in real time on the NSFAS system. So those are improvements that the Minister referred to, and which we will continue to build on as we have more time to actually re-envision and reimagine the new NSFAS.
You've both spoken about how well NSFAS have done in some manners and also the challenges that you're facing. So can you take us into your confidence about the things that you think you're going to change going forward that's going to make it easier for students?
Sorry, can you repeat that?
Well, I think some of those things are to improve the systems. As you know, in the past we had a problem of compatibility of systems. We have information technology experts had been brought into the organization to help us to address that. We also are addressing the question of human resources, ensuring that the team we have has the skills that are absolutely relevant to the tasks that NSFAS must execute. So there's a holistic set of solutions that we are implementing because it was an institutional and systems set of changes that we needed to put in place. So all of these are being addressed. It won't be an overnight solution, nor can we do it on our own. This is why one of the efforts we've really devoted time to is constant engagement with student leadership, with university and college leadership, to ensure that they understand the processes, they understand who is eligible, who is not, and ensure that they help us to overcome any glitches that there might be. So, for example, Dr. Carolissen indicates some of the students that don't have confirmation have not signed the bursary forms. So they're eligible, but they haven't signed what they should sign. We need those names so that we can ensure they sign. The students should help us to reach those young people and say to them, please do go and sign. We need to ensure that all the documentation that is required is provided. We should also remember that registration has only just begun in many institutions in the past 7 days. So we're not going to overcome all the challenges right at the inception of registration. As the Vice Chancellor of the Durban University of Technology indicated, the registration is ongoing. They register hundreds of young people each day, and it's only upon confirmation that you have a place and are registered that we can say, although you're eligible, you now are confirmed, you're a beneficiary.
Dr. Carolissen, Minister Pandor was speaking about this engagement with student leaders to get feedback onto how you can perform better. One of the issues raised by the EFF Student Council is that they feel that Tvet colleges are not getting sufficient attention. That's the first thing. And the second thing is that the NSFAS model is not proper, especially because of that exclusion of those so-called missing middle students.
Well, look, let me deal with the Tvet colleges. We've invested an enormous amount of energy into getting the Tvet colleges properly aligned with the NSFAS systems. And we spend an enormous amount of time with the department to improve the Tvet allowances and make them more standard and bring them closer to the university system. Now, of course, the Tvets are a unique environment. So we engage with the principals, and I've also engaged with the student leadership, and there is a great level of improvement on the Tvet environment. And of course, we need to continue to work. There are still some institutions that are not yet properly aligned with our systems, and we are sending teams to deal with that. On the issue of the missing middle, I think the Minister will probably be better equipped to talk to that particular issue, and I will hand over to her on that particular issue.
Well, I think, as you know, we said that with the introduction of the national bursary, we would be targeting the most vulnerable, the poor and the working class. We provided support to ameliorate increases by institutions for the missing middle, that is students whose families have an income of 600,000 Rand and above. We are unable to continue that buffer, but we have said to the system that we are investigating the possible use of the ISFAP or the Ikusasa grant program to see how we could partner with them in order to assist those families in the missing middle who might be in need of help. Those who were helped in the past 2 years will continue to be assisted, but those funds are integrated into the grant that has been provided to the universities as well as the colleges. I believe the public of South Africa have really been amazing in agreeing with the government that the revenue we generate from the tax provided by the people of South Africa is devoted to the amount of 24 billion Rand toward assisting the most marginalized, the poorest of the families and young people who are talented in our country.
Thanks both so much for your time this evening. That was the Minister of Higher Education, Naledi Pandor, as well as the Administrator of the National Student Financial Aid Scheme, Dr. Randall Carolissen, in our Parliament studio. Francis, it's over to you.